Gemini, how to listen to your intuition beyond logic and fact-based thinking. In a world that constantly celebrates logic, proof, and measurable outcomes, it's easy for Gemini, the curious and quick-minded twin, to lean heavily into the realm of rationality. You are a seeker of information, a collector of facts, a master of words. Yet beneath this brilliant mind lies another voice, quieter but no less powerful, your intuition. This inner knowing does not rely on research, statistics, or logical conclusions. Instead, it speaks in whispers, in sudden flashes of insight, in a feeling that bypasses reason altogether. For Gemini, learning to balance your sharp intellect with the wisdom of your intuition is not about abandoning thought, but about expanding into a fuller version of yourself, one who honors both the mind and the soul. Imagine decisions not solely made by analysis, but by a sense of deep alignment within you. Picture conversations where you not only hear the words, but feel the truth beneath them. Envision a life where your restless mind doesn't just chase answers, but also trusts the quiet guidance that arises unexplainably. That is the art of listening beyond logic. If you find resonance in these words, if you've ever felt torn between what your head tells you and what your heart knows, then this message is for you. Stay with me. Share this light with others, and let's step together into the mystical terrain where intellect and intuition become allies instead of rivals. For Gemini, intuition can feel both familiar and foreign. On one hand, you are naturally attuned to the world around you. You pick up subtle cues in tone, energy, and body language faster than most. On the other hand, your mercurial mind often demands proof, clarity, and data before granting permission to act. This creates a paradox. You sense things before they happen, yet you hesitate to trust those impressions because they don't make sense. The first step in learning how to listen to your intuition beyond logic is recognizing that intuition is not meant to replace your intellect. It is meant to complement it. Intuition is not a wild guess, nor is it random. It is a form of intelligence born from the depths of your subconscious, a synthesis of lived experiences, subtle perceptions, and soul-level awareness. When you doubt it, you disconnect from a dimension of yourself that can guide you toward greater alignment. Think about moments in your life when you simply knew something without evidence. Perhaps you felt a certain restlessness when entering a room, only to later discover the tension that lingered there. Maybe you had an inexplicable pull toward a person who later became central to your journey. Or recall the times you ignored a small inner nudge, choosing logic over feeling, and ended up regretting the decision. These are not coincidences. They are reminders that your inner compass has always been active, waiting for your acknowledgement. For Gemini, the real challenge lies in silencing the noise. Your mind is a brilliant library, always filling itself with new information, but intuition doesn't need 1,000 references. It only needs space. Practicing mindfulness, meditation, or simply spending time alone without distraction allows the quiet voice of intuition to emerge from underneath the chatter. You may find that in these moments, answers rise uninvited. A sudden thought might feel different, lighter, more fluid, almost as if it drops into your awareness rather than being generated through analysis. This is the intuitive voice. It rarely shouts, but always carries a resonance that feels calm and certain, even when it defies reason. Science itself is beginning to catch up to what mystics have long known. Studies on the subconscious reveal that our brains are constantly processing information below the surface. When you feel intuitive, it isn't just magical thinking. It's the rapid integration of subtle signals and stored memories that logic cannot compute in time. For Gemini, who thrives on understanding, reframing intuition as another form of intelligence may soften your resistance to it. You can see it not as an enemy of reason, but as a trusted partner. Take the example of Steve Jobs, a figure often associated with Gemini energy. He famously said, "Intuition is a very powerful thing, more powerful than intellect." Jobs was known for blending his analytical brilliance with a deep trust in his gut feelings, often making decisions that seemed illogical but later proved revolutionary. For Gemini, who may be prone to overthinking, this is a powerful model. To recognize that sometimes a leap of faith carries you further than the step-by-step calculation. Learning to trust your intuition also involves experimentation. Start small. The next time you feel drawn to a certain path, whether it's taking a different route home, reaching out to someone, or pausing before making a purchase. Test what happens when you listen. Record your experiences in a journal. Over time, you'll notice a pattern. The intuitive voice leads you toward greater alignment, even when the outcome isn't immediate. This process strengthens your trust in yourself. Gemini's duality plays a crucial role here. One twin represents a logical mind, the other the intuitive soul. Most of your life, society has rewarded the rational twin, leaving the intuitive one in the shadows. But balance is your destiny. By acknowledging both, you give yourself permission to live as a whole being. You no longer have to choose between thinking and feeling. You can allow both to guide you in harmony. Intuition also deepens your relationships. As an air sign, Gemini is naturally social and thrives on communication. But beyond words lies the realm of energy, the unspoken truths people carry. When you listen intuitively, you don't just hear what someone says, you sense what they mean. This allows you to respond with greater empathy and authenticity. Suddenly, conversations become deeper, less about exchanging data and more about soul connection. Ultimately, listening to your intuition is about trust. Trust that your soul knows the way. Trust that not everything valuable can be measured. Trust that even in uncertainty, you are guided. For Gemini, this trust will feel like liberation. It frees you from a prison of overthinking and invites you into a dance with life itself. A dance where logic provides structure and intuition offers rhythm. And in this sacred balance, you discover a new kind of freedom, the ability to live not just intelligently, but wisely. One of the greatest challenges Gemini faces when learning to listen to intuition is the ability to distinguish between the true inner voice and the illusions created by a restless, overactive mind. Your dual nature makes you brilliant at generating ideas, but also makes you susceptible to mistaking mental noise for spiritual guidance. This is where discernment becomes essential, because not every thought that arises deserves to be followed, and not every feeling is intuition. The true intuitive voice is quiet, steady, and often arrives without fanfare. It feels like a gentle knowing rather than an anxious push. By contrast, the false voice of fear or ego tends to be loud, urgent, and repetitive. For example, imagine you are considering a new job opportunity. Your rational mind may run through endless pros and cons, creating scenarios of success and failure, while your ego-driven voice might push with urgency, saying, "If you don't take this, you'll miss your only chance." Yet somewhere beneath the noise, there may be a subtle whisper, calm and persistent, that says, "This doesn't align with who you are becoming." Learning to recognize that tone, quiet but clear, is the art of listening beyond thought. For Gemini, who thrives on variety, your challenge is compounded by curiosity. The world presents endless options, and your mind is eager to explore them all. Intuition helps you cut through the noise, pointing you not toward the most exciting option, but toward the most aligned. This is not about denying your curiosity, but about guiding it so it doesn't scatter your energy. Think of it like tuning a radio. Logic may scan through every frequency, but intuition locks you onto the one that plays your soul song. Practical exercises can help. One method is to practice dropping into the body. The mind is quick, but the body is honest. When faced with decision, pause and notice how your body feels. Does your chest expand or tighten? Do you feel light or heavy? A true intuitive yes feels like ease, like stepping into flow. A no often feels constricting, even if the logical mind argues otherwise. For Gemini, this body-based check-in can be transformative, grounding your airy energy into something tangible. Another powerful practice is stream of consciousness journaling. Set aside time each day to write without censoring, allowing thoughts, feelings, and impressions to spill onto the page. In the beginning, much of what arises will be the mind emptying itself. But if you continue long enough, intuitive insights begin to surface. They arrive not as over-explanations, but as simple, direct truths. The practice trains you to recognize the difference between mental chatter and intuitive wisdom. Let's consider an example from relationships, an area where Gemini often struggles to balance intellect and intuition. Imagine you meet someone new who fascinates you. Your logical mind analyzes their words, their background, their potential. At the same time, Your intuition may sense something deeper, a subtle mismatch in energy, or a feeling that this connection is not what it seems. If you ignore that nudge, you may later discover hidden truths that your intuition already knew. Conversely, when you honor the intuitive sense, even if it means stepping away from something exciting, you protect yourself from unnecessary heartbreak. This is not about being suspicious. It's about honoring the wisdom that perceives what the eyes cannot see. Discernment also requires patience, which can feel uncomfortable for Gemini's quick energy. Intuition doesn't always deliver answers on demand. Sometimes it asks you to wait, to hold the question in your heart until the right moment of clarity arrives. This can feel frustrating, like standing in a space of uncertainty. But this very pause is where intuition strengthens. It teaches you to be still enough to listen, to trust the unseen timing of your life. Real-life examples illustrate this well. Consider Oprah Winfrey, who often speaks about the role of intuition in her decisions. She has described moments where every logical reason pointed one way, yet her inner voice said another, and when she honored that inner voice, it led her toward alignment and expansion. Though not a Gemini by birth, her story demonstrates what you must learn, that the greatest breakthroughs often come when you trust the unexplainable over the rational. For Gemini, who sometimes fears missing out, this can feel like a leap. Logic says, do more, no more, act faster. Intuition says, pause, breathe, trust. The tension between these voices is the very space where your growth unfolds. When you learn to slow down and truly listen, you begin to make choices that are not only smart but soulful. Over time, this practice creates confidence. At first, you may still question yourself. Was that really intuition or just my imagination? But the more you follow the quiet voice and see the results, the more your trust deepens. You begin to notice synchronicities, doors opening, opportunities aligning effortlessly when you honor your intuitive nudges. What once felt like risk now feels like natural flow. Ultimately, learning to distinguish true intuition from mental chatter allows Gemini to step into a new level of self-mastery. It frees you from the endless loops of analysis and gives you a compass that no amount of logic can replace. When you combine the sharpness of your intellect with the quiet wisdom of your intuition, you become unstoppable. Not because you have all the answers, but because you trust yourself enough to walk into the unknown. And that, for Gemini, is the doorway to true freedom. For Gemini, whose very nature is defined by motion, curiosity, and multiplicity, the modern world can feel like an endless buffet of stimuli. Social media, conversations, news, podcasts, books, and constant exchanges of ideas often keep your mind buzzing from morning until night. While this constant influx of information can be exhilarating, it can also drown out your intuition. The inner voice requires stillness to be heard. Yet stillness is often the very thing Gemini resists. Learning how to access intuition beyond logic, therefore, involves creating intentional spaces of quiet amidst the noise. It may seem paradoxical for a sign ruled by Mercury, the planet of communication, thought, and exchange, to seek silence. But in truth, silence is not the absence of sound. It is the presence of awareness. It is in these moments of quiet reflection that your intuition finally has the space to rise above the constant chatter of your restless mind. Imagine your mind as a crowded marketplace where everyone is speaking at once. Intuition is a single soft voice calling your name from a corner stall. You cannot hear it if you are trying to respond to every merchant at once. But when you pause, breathe, and listen differently, you suddenly recognize it has been calling all along. One way to access this inner stillness is through mindfulness practices. For Gemini, traditional meditation may feel daunting at first. You may find your thoughts racing, creating frustration. But meditation does not mean silencing thought completely. It means watching thought without getting caught in its flow. Start with something simple. 5 minutes of observing your breath, noticing how it enters and leaves the body. Each time your mind wanders, gently return to the breath. This practice retrains your awareness, teaching you that not every thought deserves attention. In time, this spaciousness makes room for intuitive insight to surface. Nature can also be a profound teacher for Gemini. As an air sign, you are deeply connected to movement, and walking meditations or time spent under the open sky can bring you back into alignment. Have you ever noticed how your best ideas often come while walking, showering, or staring at the horizon? This is no coincidence. These are moments when the mind relaxes, when logic softens its grip, and intuition is free to emerge. By making such practices intentional, you create pathways to listen to the wisdom that logic cannot access. Consider 2. The role of solitude. While Gemini thrives on connection, there's immense value in time spent alone. In solitude, the voices of others recede, and you are left with your own. At first, this can feel uncomfortable, even lonely, but with practice, it becomes liberating. In this space, you begin to notice your own rhythms, your authentic desires, and the subtle nudges of your intuition. Journaling in solitude can be especially potent, allowing you to record insights that might otherwise vanish in the rush of daily life. Let us bring this into a real-life context. Imagine a Gemini who works in a fast-paced corporate environment, constantly switching between meetings, emails, and tasks. Their logical mind thrives here, problem-solving, analyzing, communicating. Yet beneath the surface, they feel drained and unfulfilled. They begin a simple practice of morning stillness, waking up 15 minutes earlier to sit quietly with tea, no phone, no agenda. At first, their mind races, but slowly a shift occurs. Ideas arrive not as frantic thoughts, but as gentle guidance. One morning, the thought comes, this path no longer aligns with you. It doesn't shout, it simply lands. Months later, this Gemini makes a courageous shift toward work that feels more aligned with their true calling. That clarity did not come from logic alone. It came from stillness, where intuition finally had space to speak. Another profound way Gemini can connect to intuition is through dreams. Your airy, mercurial nature often translates into vivid dreamscapes where your subconscious communicates in symbols and metaphors. Keeping a dream journal by your bed allows you to capture these insights before they fade. Over time, you may begin to notice patterns, recurring symbols, themes, or messages that speak directly to your intuitive path. Dreams bypass logic completely. They are a direct line to the soul. By honoring them, you strengthen your ability to listen beyond the rational. The balance, of course, is not to deny your love of logic, but to create cycles between stimulation and stillness. Think of it as inhaling and exhaling. Your natural curiosity is the inhale, gathering knowledge and engaging with the world. Stillness and intuition are the exhale, allowing integration and deeper wisdom to arise. Without the exhale, the inhale becomes suffocating. Without the inhale, the exhale is empty. By honoring both, you create a rhythm that sustains your energy instead of depleting it. When Gemini learns to embrace stillness, you do not lose your brilliance. You amplify it. Your intellect becomes sharper because it is no longer clouded by endless noise. Your words become more impactful because they are infused with deeper truth. And most importantly, your decisions become more aligned because they are guided by both mind and spirit. You begin to see that the greatest clarity doesn't come from thinking harder, but from listening more deeply. In this balance, Gemini discovers a profound secret. Intuition is not something you need to chase. It is something you need to allow. It is always present, patiently waiting for you to quiet the storm of thoughts so it can be heard. And once you learn this art, the world no longer feels overwhelming. Instead, it becomes a canvas where your mind and intuition paint together, creating a life that is not only intelligent but deeply soulful. Gemini has always been defined by relationships, conversations, exchanges of ideas, friendships, and connections that bring you joy and stimulation. Yet within these relationships, your intuition plays a role even greater than logic. You are naturally gifted at reading people's words and expressions, but the deeper truth often hides beneath the surface, where logic cannot reach. This is where your intuition becomes a compass, guiding you toward authenticity and alignment in your interactions with others. At times, Gemini may find herself surrounded by many acquaintances, yet still feeling misunderstood. Part of this stems from your tendency to stay on the surface level of communication, where facts and stories dominate. But intuition invites you to go deeper, to sense the emotional undercurrents, to listen not only to what is spoken but to what is unsaid. For example, When a friend tells you they are fine, your intuition may catch the slight break in their voice, the heaviness in their energy. Logic will accept the words at face value, but intuition whispers, there is more here. By honoring the subtle awareness, you become not just a conversationalist, but a healer, someone who truly sees and understands. In love, this becomes even more vital. Gemini's restless energy sometimes leads to quick decisions, falling for the sparkle of someone's wit or charm without noticing the deeper currents. Intuition helps you slow down, to feel whether a connection resonates with your soul, rather than just your mind. You may meet someone who appears perfect on paper, successful, articulate, intriguing. Logic might say, this is a great match. Yet if your intuition feels a quiet dissonance, that is a message not to ignore. Many Geminis have learned this lesson the hard way, discovering later that their initial gut feeling was correct. The key is to trust that first whisper, even if it contradicts reason. Consider relationships from the opposite perspective, too. Sometimes your intuition will guide you toward people who don't immediately fit your logical checklist. Perhaps they live a very different lifestyle, or their background doesn't align with what you imagined, yet something within you feels safe, expanded, or deeply at ease in their presence. This is a sign of a soul connection, one logic could easily dismiss, but intuition recognizes instantly. By trusting this, you allow yourself to form bonds that transcend superficial compatibility and touch the essence of who you are. Intuition also plays a crucial role in navigating conflict. Gemini often avoids confrontation, preferring harmony and lightness. Yet ignoring tension can create fractures over time. Here, your intuition helps you sense when something needs to be addressed, even if no words have been spoken. It nudges you to check in with a partner, friend, or colleague, creating opportunities for healing before misunderstandings grow. Logic might convince you to wait for evidence, but intuition urges you to act with empathy before the cracks widen. In the broader journey of life, your intuition helps you navigate choices that shape your destiny. Gemini is often pulled in many directions: career paths, creative pursuits, places to live, dreams to chase. This multiplicity can create indecision, as your logical mind weighs endless pros and cons. But intuition simplifies. It doesn't hand you a detailed map. It gives you a compass, pointing gently toward the next aligned step. For instance, you may feel drawn to a new city for no rational reason, only to later discover it holds the very opportunities you've been seeking. Or you may feel urged to explore a creative passion that seems impractical, yet opens doors of fulfillment logic could never predict. A story comes to mind of a Gemini artist who worked in a stable corporate job. Logic said to stay. It was secure, respected, and provided for their needs. But their intuition kept whispering, you are meant to create. At first, they ignored it, fearing the uncertainty of such a path. But the inner nudge grew stronger until they finally listened, taking small steps toward art while still working. Within a few years, their passion flourished into a career that not only sustained them financially, but also brought profound joy. Had they relied solely on logic, they would have stayed safe but unfulfilled. Intuition gave them the courage to step into their true calling. When Gemini allows intuition to guide both relationships and life choices, you discover a form of clarity that logic alone cannot provide. Logic answers a question, does this make sense? Intuition answers the deeper question, does this feel true? When both align, you know you are on the right path. When they conflict, intuition often carries a wisdom that reason cannot yet see. Ultimately, the journey is not about abandoning your brilliant mind. It is about integrating it with your inner knowing. The mind sees the visible. Intuition senses the invisible. Together, they create a vision broad enough to navigate not just the surface of life, but its depths. For Gemini, this integration transforms relationships, decisions, and destiny itself into something more authentic, more aligned, and more profoundly fulfilling. To truly embody the wisdom of intuition, Gemini must learn not only to hear it, but to live by it consistently. This final step transforms intuition from an occasional whisper into a guiding compass, a steady presence that grounds you even in the midst of life's constant changes. For a sign that thrives on movement and variety, this integration is not about restricting your freedom. It is about creating an inner anchor so that no matter where your curiosity takes you, you remain aligned with your deeper truth. The first key is practice. Intuition strengthens with use, much like a muscle. Each time you act on a subtle nudge, you reinforce the neural and energetic pathways that make it easier to recognize the voice of your inner guidance. Gemini, with your quick adaptability, can sometimes dismiss these nudges as coincidences or accidents. But when you begin to track them through journaling, reflection, or simple awareness, you see the patterns emerge. You notice that the more you listen, the more synchronicities unfold, the more life flows with ease. What once felt like risk becomes reassurance. You are being guided. The second key is alignment. For Gemini, whose dual nature often pulls you in opposite directions, intuition becomes a bridge between your twins. One twin leans toward logic, the other toward feeling. Intuition harmonizes them. When you trust it, you stop battling within yourself, no longer feeling torn between head and heart. Decisions that once left you paralyzed suddenly become clear because they resonate with both intellect and soul. This alignment creates not only peace, but also power. A Gemini who listens to intuition walks through the world with confidence, knowing that even in uncertainty, there's inner certainty. Consider how this plays out in daily life. Imagine you are invited to a project that looks promising on the surface. High pay, prestige, potential connections. Your logical mind lists all the reasons to accept, yet your intuition quietly resists, perhaps through a subtle heaviness in your chest or a restless unease. You choose to decline, trusting that inner signal. Weeks later, you learn that the project collapsed under poor leadership. By listening, you not only avoided unnecessary stress, but preserve your energy for something greater. Experiences like these reinforce your trust, creating a cycle of deeper listening and bolder action. Another example, a Gemini who has always longed to write, but fears it isn't practical. The intuitive voice, however, keeps nudging, write, even if no one reads yet. They begin a daily practice, writing quietly without expectation. Over time, this grows into a blog, then a book, then a career. The path unfolded not through calculation, but through trust in a consistent inner calling. This is the power of living intuitively. It doesn't always reveal the end destination, but it always guides the next step with clarity. For Gemini, consistency is the real challenge. Your mercurial nature thrives on novelty, and intuition asks for patience. It may not deliver constant stimulation. Instead, it offers steady wisdom. Learning to appreciate this subtle guidance requires you to shift your relationship with time. Instead of demanding immediate answers, you learn to sit with a question, trusting that clarity will arise in its own rhythm. In doing so, you cultivate resilience, patience, and a deeper trust in life's unfolding. This way of living also transforms your sense of freedom. At first, intuition may feel like a limitation. Why should you follow a whisper instead of exploring all options? But in reality, intuition liberates you. It prevents you from scattering your energy in directions that drain you, focusing instead on paths that nourish your soul. You still explore, but your explorations are guided. You still learn, but your learning is purposeful. You still connect, but your connections are authentic. This is freedom not of endless choice, but of meaningful direction. On a spiritual level, intuition is the language of your higher self, the part of you that sees beyond time and circumstance. When you listen, you are not just making better decisions. You are aligning with your soul's blueprint. For Gemini, who often feels a pull of multiple lives within one, this is a thread that weaves your experiences into a cohesive story. You realize that your curiosity, your restlessness, your hunger for knowledge were never random. They were preparation for the moment you would learn to anchor them in intuition, transforming scattered fragments into a unified whole. As you embrace this way of living, life shifts. Relationships deepen because you connect beyond words. Decisions clarify because you trust your inner compass. Opportunities align because you follow the nudges that lead you where logic alone could never predict. You become not just a thinker, not just a communicator, but a bridge between intellect and spirit, a Gemini who embodies both wisdom and wonder, and perhaps the greatest gift of all, peace. For a sign so often restless, The discovery that you can trust yourself brings a stillness no external achievement can provide. You no longer chase answers endlessly. You allow them to find you. You no longer feel split between twins. You become whole. This is the gift intuition offers Gemini, a path to freedom that is not found in more, but in deeper, a freedom born not of escaping uncertainty, but of learning to trust within it. To walk the path of intuition is to walk the path of trust. And for Gemini, this trust is the missing key that transforms restlessness into alignment, indecision into clarity, and noise into wisdom. You were born with a brilliant mind, a gift of words, and an insatiable curiosity that allows you to explore the endless facets of life. Yet, as you discovered here, there is another voice within you, softer, deeper, timeless. This voice does not argue or persuade. It does not demand proof or logic. It simply knows. Throughout this journey, you've seen how intuition is not separate from your intellect, but a partner to it, a compass that guides where facts cannot reach. You've learned that discernment allows you to tell the difference between fear and true inner knowing. You've discovered that stillness, though uncomfortable at first, is the sacred ground where intuition speaks loudest. You've explored how intuition enriches your relationships, your choices, and your life's direction. And most importantly, you've come to see that intuition is not a fleeting spark, but a steady flame, one that can light your way if you let it. So now, Gemini, I invite you to ask yourself, where in your life have you been overthinking, analyzing every angle, waiting for certainty that never comes? And what might shift if, instead, you paused, breathed, and trusted the whisper rising within? Your intuition is not a stranger. It has always been there, guiding you toward people, places, and paths meant for you. The question is no longer whether it exists, but whether you will listen. As you continue your journey, remember, the greatest wisdom does not always come in words, but in resonance. The truth does not always make sense, but always feels right. And when you combine your brilliant intellect with the subtle power of intuition, you step into your fullest expression, a Gemini who is not only informed by the world, but guided by the soul. If these words resonate with you, I would love to hear your reflections. Share in the comments below. When was the last time you trusted your intuition and what unfolded? Your story might be the light that inspires someone else.